Hildy. We are live. It is on air. Okay. Good. So now I just wait for 15 minutes. This will be fun. I'm glad you're here too, Sebastian. All right. I have 3 animals with me tonight. You see Hildegard on the right. Sebastian is about to make his appearance. Thank you, Sebastian. The unity of creation, folks, right here, cat and dog together. And then Gertrude is sleeping on pillows. So, all right, I have my phone. Do you want to make a decision about where you want to be, Sebastian, before we get started, or are you just going to be a cat? Okay. Hey, Anna, welcome.
I know it's a little early. I just wanted to log on. I think I'm just gonna sit back and listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just have it on in the background because I'm about to get a phone call from my friend actually. But yeah, thanks for starting this.
Yeah, I have no idea if it's gonna work. Oh, someone else is here. Okay, it is gonna work. There are gonna be 3 people. This is great.
I think it'd be good. I think you're gonna get a lot of people. So good luck.
Thank you.
We'll talk later.
Cool. That'd be awesome. Yes. Yes, you're a good kitty. Hey, Mandy.
Oh, the sound's off. There we go. That'll be helpful.
Hey, friend. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I have Hildegard here. Hildegard, say hello.
Nice. That was going to be Basil's name if you weren't male.
Really? You were gonna name him Hildegard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I believe you, actually. That's surprising.
Yeah, we were surprised. We thought we were going to get a female puppy, but we ended up with a very lovely male.
Okay. Hey, Peter. Well, he's here somewhere.
Hi, friend.
And I think, Jeff, is that you in the background as well? Okay. Jeff is it? I think that's Jeff. All right. Shit's just blowing up. We're just gonna let that go. Jenny's here. Awesome. I don't even remember who I said got to be on the videos.
Whoa.
Hi, I didn't say that. Hi, Emmy. It's just nice to see your face.
Hi.
I didn't sign up to be on the video. I just wanted to participate.
I don't care. I don't care.
Okay.
I mean, I think, like, at this point, as long as we have room enough for everybody who wants to be on the video, then I think we're fine. And at this point, that is what we have. So I'm glad you're here.
Good, good. Let me actually grab my Bible.
Hi, team.
Hi, Peter.
Hello.
Yay. Oh, is that the dark side wants you or the Empire wants you in the background?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Peter, how's life treating you?
Good. I'm busy. I'm tired.
Are you two like in the same room right now? What's going on?
Oh,
I'm downstairs with our puppy. This is our puppy.
Eddie.
Eddie.
Oh. Okay, I'm changing the plan for tonight, you guys. It's just going to be a puppy walk.
Yeah, so he really likes to, he's a curious academic dog, and so he might chew a little bit on Peter's Bible.
Okay.
Have your Bible.
Oh, that's where it is.
Do you
Oh.
need it?
No, I'll use my computer.
He's got it memorized. Don't worry about it.
Here, do you want this Bible and get me another one?
No, I've got one. I
Hi, Mandy.
You're a New Testament scholar and you can't find 2 Bibles among you. Come on.
Yes.
Yeah. It happens.
we have some. Who else is in here?
So your wife is here, Mandy is here, and then Anna and Jeff. And Anna, I'm not sure how she found us. She'll be on in the background. Jeff is, I think, on in the background as well. And I don't know who else is going to come.
Cool.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, this is exciting. This is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we just do, well, I guess we could wait until 7 o'clock to do, like, I was thinking maybe short intros, like who we are, why we're here, for those of us who are, like, willing to be on camera.
Okay.
Just so people kind of know who we are.
Quiet.
I am playing this entirely by the seat of my pants, so, like, I have no idea what's going to work and what's not, so fingers crossed for anything to work.
It's a great idea. Thank you for starting it.
Hangout's working.
It's true. So far, a bunch of my favorite people are all on my computer screen, and I love it.
Yay.
Yay. Justin Rimbo's here. Justin Rimbo supposedly is here. He joined group chat. I'll have to introduce you all to each other. Yeah, this is good. Awesome. Talk amongst yourselves. We got 6 minutes. I don't want to get started. Like, I've been with Humble Walk so long that I feel really antsy about getting started early because I know we'll miss people. So.
Okay, fine.
What do you think, Hilda?
Instead. Basil.
Yeah.
Basil, come.
Puppy video the whole time. Let's just do it.
Oh, and who's that?
Come say hi. Oh, this one's Dulce. Hi, Dulce. Basil, get over here.
I do say, oh, you are cute.
There's Saffron.
Oh.
Oh,
And here comes Basil. Hi, big boy.
oh,
Oh.
Basil. Oh, he's beautiful.
Bass, come here. Come say hi.
Hi.
Nope. Too tired.
Ah.
They went to dog daycare today, so he's totally pooped.
Nice.
Eddie slept most of the day, so this will be interesting.
Still playing. I'm with him. What do I do?
My schedule is greater than yours.
What? All right.
Are you drinking beer?
Well, mead.
Damn it, I hate you.
Sorry.
You're like,
Can you all see each other? Like.
Yeah, it keeps popping between the ones who are speaking. It appears to be.
And Jenny, with your phone camera, it just pops up and shows like your eyes.
Oh,
So
really?
It just looks like
Is this better?
you're peeking over the top of your camera. Yeah.
So it's better if I hold it far away like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That work?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm wearing my Thrivent freebie T-shirt. Live
Nice.
generously. Along with the Action Thrivent Choice Dollars. No, Action Teams. Thrivent Action Teams.
So are you just here as a Thrivent shill, Jenny? What's this all about? I think
You get free money if you say you want to do a project to help people. So it's the most comfortable T-shirt I have. They didn't skip out on the material.
What's the project?
It can be anything you want. You just apply for it, as long as you're a Thrivent member or you have Thrivent members in your community. And so we did one for a dinner church. We were thinking about doing a food matching drive, so bring in canned food and Thrivent will match it with that money. So just whatever you want to do, different projects. Pay to get a DJ for a coat drive type of thing. Just, it can be really whatever.
Literally get a DJ, like somebody to play music, and they will give you money to have somebody play music during your coat drive.
If it brings people together and it serves the community, yeah, up to $250 per member, and they can apply twice a year.
Awesome.
Yeah, free money.
Free money.
So that was a Thrivent plug.
Good. I'm glad.
And Emmy, who's your puppy?
This is Hildegard. Hildegard, come here.
Hildegard, of course. Mwah.
Oh.
Very cute.
Sebastian is on my lap, and Gertrude is on a pile of pillows. Sebastian is a cat, Gertrude is another. This is a Shih Tzu poodle, and Gertrude is a Shih Tzu Bichon, so she's white with black.
Oh,
Yes.
so calm and chill.
She's on puppy Prozac. She gets drugs for that one.
Oh.
Yeah, because you're a little spaz otherwise, aren't you? If you lick me during this broadcast, you'll be in so much trouble. Cool.
Dark muted picture. Okay.
Okay. Justin, are you gonna join us in chat, or are you just gonna creep on the group chat and type stuff? What's your plan? I see your little icon there. He's not gonna tell me. That's fine. Creeping, I think. Okay, great. That's great. We love creepers.
Oh, look, there's a message thing. Okay.
Okay. I don't know what your screens exactly look like, but there's a little chat thing. I think if you put your cursor on the left, and then you click on the chat. So there's just a couple chatty things happening there, and there's a Q&A section as well, which has not been utilized yet. I don't fully know how this works. This is all, I'm making it up as I go. So.
Oh my God, there's a screen share.
Peter, use your power wisely.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm just thinking this is a teaching tool. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
And add apps. I don't even know what that means.
I'm on my mobile device, and I don't see the chat thing. So.
Oh, I don't know exactly how chat.
But that's okay. I can participate through this way. Stop chewing on the Bible.
Yeah. And I think what I'll do is, if there's, what I wanted to do is make both video and chatting available, so if somebody doesn't necessarily want to be talking in the conversation, they can still be shooting out questions in the chat or in Q&A or on Twitter, whatever.
Will you name those? Will you speak to those, or
yes. No?
just
they will just be spoken into the ether of the internet and just dissolve. No, I'll read them out loud.
Okay, cool.
And Tara's with us. Tara's someone I've just met through Humble Walk. I think we've just met online so far, but she's going to be in chat as well, it looks like. 701. So let's just get rolling, and if people keep adding in, then that's awesome too. Can you not lick my Bible? That would be great. So hi, everyone. I think most of you know me, but I'll just do a quick, my name is Emmy. I have a Master's of Divinity from Luther Seminary in St. Paul. I'm awaiting call in the ELCA, and I am a woman, and I am queer, and so for those reasons, along with others, I've definitely struggled with loving the Bible and loving scriptures and being excited about them, and seminary was my way to sort of beat my way back to that, to fall back in love with the scriptures as I had when I was a kid. And now I want to make a space where other people can do that, because I think whether you go to seminary or degree or PhD or bachelor's or anything, the chance to read scripture with other people who've struggled with it is a really important thing that sometimes we can only find through long distance chat. So that is why we're here. I think Mandy and Peter, you both had volunteered to talk, and Jenny, I don't know if you also want to join in on that.
Sure.
Oh, and Shamika's here. Awesome. Is it Shamika? Is that how I say it?
We have my friend Hannah joining us.
Awesome. We're just doing intros. So Mandy and Peter, Jenny, do you want to talk tonight? What's your feel?
I can contribute. Yes, sure.
So,
I'm here.
Those of you who want to be on video chat and contributing vocally, will you just do a quick intro, like who you are, what you're up to, and what brought you here? Mandy, you're on my left, like my furthest left, so I'm going to start with you. You go first.
I'm Mandy Brooks-Reno. I have an MDiv from Luther Seminary. I spend my days pastoring and doing a PhD in biblical studies at Baylor University in Waco, Texas. And I have 3 dogs and a house full of hair. And I'm here because I think reading text from an angle is, in some cases, how they were written, and I think that sometimes the power structures have taught us that it was never meant to be read from an angle, and I think that's just a farce. And so I like the idea of reading things slant. And so I'm here for that voice in my life. There's not a ton of voices. I'm in not even the Bible Belt, it's the evangelical Bible Belt of Texas, and so the conversations around Christianity are the opposite of life-giving for me right now, and so craving community in that.
Awesome. I mean, not awesome, but thank you, Mandy. Jenny, can you do a little intro? Tell us about yourself.
Of course. I am Jenny McClellan, pastor of Calvary Lutheran Church in Allendale, New Jersey. I am married to Peter McClellan, he will introduce himself. He's on here. And our life is busy right now with a new puppy, 12 weeks old now. And I am joining this conversation. At first I wanted to listen in, but I'm on the chat now, and I'm excited to be a part of this, to listen more, but also to contribute from a pastoral perspective. I'm always listening for ways to read Scripture imaginatively, and with many different voices coming together for it. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and especially I have a study with a bunch of Lutheran pastors weekly, and they tend to avoid the difficult stuff. Like, let's not talk about marriage, let's talk about the children. Let's not talk about divorce. That's sticky. So I'm ready to get heavy with the Bible.
Thank you for being here, Jenny. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Peter, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Peter McClellan. I go with Jenny, and I'm in my 3rd year of PhD program in New Testament and Early Christianity at Drew University in Madison, New Jersey, and it's fun. Yeah. Mostly I've become convinced that reading the Bible is good for something. I'm not always certain what it is good for. But I think I do is that reading the Bible is always a political act, and so I'm interested in the ways that, probably like Mandy, in that there is a slant. I'm also concerned with the ways that we engage the Bible that sometimes main structures that can be creative and create new discourses that allow us to think deeply into politics and faith and whatever new might come out of the act.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. Shamika, and did you say Hannah as well?
Yep.
Can you two do a little intro? Tell us about how you found us and who you are.
My name is Goldner, and I found you because Shmika invited me like 2 hours ago. And I am a layperson and lover of different types.
Great. Thank you.
All right, so I'm Shamika, the tech chaplain. I got out of the hospital a week ago. I have no idea how I got this Facebook invite except for through the Holy Spirit. I'm a student at Union Theological Seminary. So I see you, Drew, through Theological Seminary over there.
Yay!
I'm also
Union!
born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. I heard Texas on the line earlier. Howdy.
Yep.
And I am also, so I'm a tech chaplain, which means I meet people at the intersection of crisis and technology. Like a chaplain, I help them find dignity in that crisis. And unlike the IT department, I actually don't solve people's tech problems in the same way. I am there for the person and not the machine. And I also study this thing that I made up called techno-womanism, which takes womanist theology and applies it to social justice issues that occur in the digital space. Which is why the entirety of this this Bible study, like I don't know how I'm going to be able to sit still for this whole thing. I have a church plant that I'm starting here at Union. I'm telling people it's a secret church similar to the early church. And hopefully through the course of this Bible study I'll be able to share more about it. But I essentially want to have an emergent church for the digital age that is online and offline at the same time, all the time, that has high tech and low tech, all tech and no tech. So whoever you are and however you're coming to be spiritually fed, you can plug in somehow, some way. So that's a lot for an introduction, but I'm really excited to be here, not in the hospital. So I am here, as they say in the Bible, here I am. You know, but God calls and you just show up and you're here with your arms open and your hands out. So that's where I am.
Awesome. I don't know why I'm leading this now. Like, this is clearly awesome. This is so great. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for those who are following along on group chat or watching later online when I get this posted to YouTube, which is supposed to happen automatically. We'll find out. Thank you. Thank you so much. How do we feel about opening with a word of prayer? A couple. Yeah. Okay. Can somebody willing to tag in, because I don't want it to be all me.
I can do that.
All right. You got it.
I can do that as the active seminarian here somewhat. Father, Mother, God, Goddess, we come to you this moment giving thanks for this fellowship. You said where two or more are gathered, and we take you to your word. Where two or more are gathered, doesn't matter how, didn't say how, it just said two or more. And we are two or more in this moment. We invite you into the midst of this moment. We invite you to this table. We invite you to these screens to be a part of this Bible study. We ask that you show up and show out in this word. You lead us and guide us as we move through this new way of doing this very, very, very old thing, which is reading your word and being moved by it. In your many names we pray, but in your Son Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Nice. Awesome. So if you have scripture in front of you, if you can grab a Bible or if you've got it on your phone, I think I'm going to say we're open at this point to whatever translation is good for you. I'm a lover of the NRSV because that's what I was raised with, and it sounds like church to me. But I have some weird love for the Message as well and what it tries to do in its sort of interpretation commentary way.
Right.
So I think if we can just kind of work through like a couple of verses at a time, and then we'll just talk over whatever rises up for us, whatever questions we have or questions that have been shot into us from others, or where you find hope or where you find challenge. So, Mandy, can I tag you to do the first couple verses?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Awesome. I'll add a little bit of my, not commentary, but I'm going to say in a beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There was evening and there was morning, the first day. Would you like me to keep going or stop it?
I mean,
End at the stanza?
yeah.
I have a question. It's something that came up this week in my reading. The whole separated light and darkness, the declaring good, are binaries good? You know, is this separation? It just seems like a lot of things aren't very separate in our realities, and I just wanted to throw that into conversation.
And can I also confirm, what was the name of the person who was doing the reading?
Mandy. Or
Say
Amanda.
Mandy?
Yeah, I'm
Or Amanda. Yeah, sorry. I'm speaking for you.
Awesome. So I took Biblical Hebrew over the summer, which is crazy pants in and of itself. But I appreciate how you chose to say in a beginning and using the opportunity to mess with that article from the. And so it was pointed out to me over the summer, you know, in the Greek is way, truth, light, which is what it reads in the Greek. But then when you're transcribing it, you have to add an article for English. And someone decided, well, you know, this is a definitive moment. The way, the truth, the light. And so here we have in a beginning, because there's, of course, two creation stories smack right next to each other. There's more than just these two creation stories in the world. I really appreciated that one decision to say in a beginning. Because there's always a new beginning. We are a new creature. Every morning there's new mercies. So there's always a new beginning in God and in Christ, as I understand it. And that small little iota of a thing, that's, you know, iotas can be really tricky and cause lots of things to happen, whatnot. But I picked up on that, and it really moved my spirit. So thank you for that decision.
Yeah, it's something that's become dear to me. I think that both in the Hebrew and in the Septuagint, there's no article, and so thinking of living in a beginning of times, and what does that mean, and how does that open us up? What constitutes a beginning? So I think the beginning, and then it imports a whole bunch of like 19th century Enlightenment ideals that the writers of the Hebrew Bible weren't thinking about.
So we're getting swung back a bit also to the binary question, which I was really caught up by because I think I saw Justin posted that on Facebook earlier. And one of the things, and I was just like, well, heck, I don't know. And then as I was listening to you read, Mandy, the verse 5, God called the light day and the darkness called night, and there was evening and there was morning the first day. So even in that splitting between darkness and light, there's also that confession of evening and morning, which are neither. Like the kind of dawn and dusk thing that, like, we do have the, you might come up? Okay. We do have the binary of night and day, because there are those two sort of opposite ends, but then also those in-betweens of dawn and dusk and evening and morning and noon versus 3 o'clock. And that was, I mean, I've read this over 6 or 7 times in prep for this day, and I missed it completely. So I think that for me is really about, like, when you're listening to somebody else read it and when you're reading in community, what can kind of rise up.
Something I've been musing on is, does the separation of dark and light, are dark and light binaries? Because for me, they have this intense relationship. I don't understand dark unless I understand light. I can't wrestle my way into or out of one or the other.
Amanda, I really appreciate that comment. There's a student here who wrote their thesis on darkness and this concept that darkness is not good. Because, of course, as a dark person, myself and this other student, you know, we have to contend with the ways that darkness and blackness and these kinds of nesses get dealt with in the Bible. And one of the professors here, Dr. James Cone, who's the father of Black liberation theology and a bunch of other things, said once the Bible is translated, it is then interpreted. And inerrancy is now in question. And so for me, when I think about this creation, God created the darkness, and it was good, right? And then when you have something like in Song of Songs, it says, I am black but beautiful in some translations. That's a conjunction. See, look, I will take somebody to grammar school, right? We already talked about definitive articles, and here we have a conjunction, or, and, but. And again, a scribe made a decision and said, I am black but beautiful. But somebody else made another decision. In other translations, it says, I am black and beautiful. But when I was in the 7th grade reading the Bible for the first time, which one did I come across? But. And it's taken years in spiritual, therapy to overcome this one word, this one decision to translate the word that way. And so I really appreciate you bringing that up. I'm also, I didn't see that either. And God divided the light from the darkness. So light out of the darkness. Just like when Adam was put to sleep and they took the rib out of Adam to get eat. So when we look at the way that light was created, light came out of the darkness. And I missed that even from the reading. I just glanced down now. And divided, like mathematics, I love math. When you divide something, it's the opposite of multiplying. And all of those things are connected.
Thank you.
Can I add something to that? And I think I mean, I don't want to. I hope I'm not jumping ahead too much.
Go.
But so I think Shamika, I'm sympathetic to Dr. Cohn's argument, but I think that sometimes the act of translation is not the first act of interpretation, but also the act of writing is the first moment of interpretation. And so I wonder if we can also
Echoing.
Is it?
Sorry, that's probably me. Turn the volume down.
Oh, are we good? Oh, okay. And so I guess I'm wondering if the text itself should be talked back to here, in that it still seems to me like there's an effort to create an order here, to create a night and a day and even an evening and morning to each of those places, and so that there's an effort to create order, and I think we could talk for a long time about the problem of just trying to create order and who gets left out of created order. But our act of interpretation here was where evening we were able to find series, because difference in the text between evening and morning, and as we'll see later, I mean, there's place for everything. There's places for the birds and all that stuff. So there's order created, but I think we need to find the slippage, and we need to find the excess where things kind of exceed the imagery that the text, or exceed the purpose that the text seems to be giving us. And I think there's something empowering in our ability to talk back that the text jewel is corrupted by interpretation, but the text itself is also something that we get to talk back to.
I like that, talking back to the text. We have some great commentary going on in the chats too that I just want to raise up.
Another chat line.
Well, I think. Thank you, Sebastian, for being involved in this. Everyone say hello. Sebastian, I think one of the things when we talk about binaries or distinctions or even language is one of the ways that we become spiritually healthy or emotionally or physically healthy is by drawing boundaries, right? That when we know, this is a situation that I need to be involved in, even though it's hurtful to me because I want to be an activist and change the world, or this is a situation that is hurtful to me, and I need to step back from it in order to protect myself and my own spiritual growth. Those boundaries can be painful to us and to others, especially when we try to establish them in like written form or in even in legal form. So in some ways, this, the interrelationship between darkness and light, that you can't have one without the other, or the rest of, that all of creation comes from one place, this formless void, that does push us always to reconsider our boundaries and say, is there a place where my boundary that I believe is for my own protection is becoming something that's hurting myself or someone else? And the difficult thing that we face is that, like, there's no perfect solution to that. I think that it just has to be a reconsideration throughout our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's one of the places where interpretation itself becomes so powerful. In that, on the one hand, this is a creation story, so creations and origins can be a way to establish authority if they're read that way. But it seems like if it's a creation story, then it's also a new beginning, so that when we read it again, we can kind of reconsider those boundaries. And the act of justice and liberation is not a one-time deal. It's a constant struggle. It's constant.
It's very process theology of you. It's just an
Maybe a creation story.
Like what's her name? Octavia
Reminds
Butler.
us that
That's change.
that opening.
I also think about identity. Oh, sorry, Peter.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
You were breaking up, and I thought you were done talking. Another question that I have is how this shapes identity, because it's hard for us to conceive of an I until we are encountered with a you. And I wonder, it's a negotiated space, and I wonder if the creation and the beginning that we're talking about is also a negotiated space. Just thinking about how, like, a child doesn't really conceive of others in the same way.
Right.
A very young child doesn't conceive of another person in the very same way. They don't have the same size of personal bubble. They don't talk about themselves as a unique self in that way.
Right.
That we think of a unique self, a buffered self.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, and this is just the first day. Out of the gate,
Yep.
And I like what you said. If you can't see God in the eyes of others, then how can you see God? Like, you're talking about identity and saying, on the first day on the job, God takes this formless void and goes, yoink, light, right? And so how do we define ourselves? I remember when the Genome Project came out, I think it was, or the thing where they did the big deoxyribonucleic acid, we're all coming from one black woman in Africa kind of thing, where it was like big news. And it wasn't big news to me because I read my Bible, Fertile Crescent. Where's the Fertile Crescent? Like, scientists finally caught up with the Bible. I thought that was a great moment. But this notion of how we identify ourselves, how do I know who I am unless I know who you are? And I was talking to somebody earlier today about the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, and that I don't agree with anymore. I think you should treat people the way they want to be treated. Because my mother wants to be treated very differently than the way I want to be treated, which is very different than the way my grandmother wants to be treated, which is very different than et cetera, et cetera. Right? So if I treated my mother the way that I treat my grandmother, she would be offended. So my grandmother dropped out of school very young so that her siblings could have the things that they had, which was school. And so I talked to my grandmother very differently than I talked to my mother. And so our identities are very much shaped by the other people around us, the other people who we choose to have in our lives, the people who God chose to have in our lives, aka your family. And I really appreciate the fact that we're taking this moment to really look at that first day and see how it relates to us right now in this moment. And for me, it just helped me to know that the light came from the darkness, because there's so much that comes out of my home tradition, which is Baptist church, that talks about God being in heaven and all of our focus being on the other side of the Jordan, and all of this slave narrative kind of language that says, right now life sucks because we're black, but it's okay because after you die you're going to go to heaven. And this was years and years ago, before Black Lives Mattered. That was a joke. So now we have this huge movement, right? People are now forced to start thinking about darkness, forced to think about blackness, forced to think about trans lives and all these other lives that have been lost before, but didn't make the news. So I think it's very important that as we begin in our beginning, we're talking about a beginning that starts with darkness. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop preaching.
No, I'm just thinking, like, okay, we're done. That's great. Thanks, Paul, for being here. Like, you just took us to church. That was excellent.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, Jeff's commenting over in chat. Coming out is also the act of dividing the light from the darkness. Right, for those of us in the well, in the LGBTQ community, but also you know, whatever you're coming out about. Tiffany Thomas just posted a really great blog post today, pastor friend, saying, like, here's the deal, guys. I'm an alcoholic. I went to revival yesterday at church, completely sauced because of my personal spiritual journey that has been full of all of this horrible baggage. And that coming out is serving as pulling light out of the darkness for her. And so, yeah, where is that? Yeah, that first act of God of pulling light out of the darkness. That's, like, I feel like we could just close on that. Like, well done. 4 verses in, we're good. We're good. But I want to keep us rolling. So, Jenny, you're next on my screen. How would you feel about reading?
I would be happy to.
Okay.
The puppy was getting a little stir crazy. But I'm reading from the NRSV, beginning with verse 6. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. And it was so. God called the dome sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. Day 2, should I keep going? Pause?
Yeah, let's pause just because it's the second day. One of our Bible scholars want to tag in with what in the world the waters above and the waters below are about.
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Not it.
Okay. I found this diagram somewhere. That the way that they understood. Okay, let's see if I can get this. So the Hebrew way of understanding the world. Mandy, back me up on this if I'm wrong. The Hebrew way of understanding the world was that there was a dome outside of, there were 2 domes basically that made up the sky, and there was water in between them. So that's the separation of water below from the waters above, and that's where rain came from. And we get back to that in Noah's Ark when God opens up the heavens. It's literally like just threw open all the windows on that, you know, inner dome, and just everything that was kind of between these two just whoosh. Very technical term.
Yes, it's the official.
But I think that's so that's this idea of this is how we got rain and this is how we got clouds, is that there's a, you know, sort of a clear dome. I always envision it as glass, you know, between us and the waters that could splash in on us. And that water is still so integrated in this story as both positive, you know, it's where we come from at creation, but also it's negative in that God has to separate some of it in order to protect us from torrential rains and in order to create dry land. It's that balance again. It's boundaries again in some ways.
Yeah, otherwise we would have been given gills, and I don't have any. So, but I was also going to say, so I'm reading in the King James version because that's what I memorized in. Another Baptist holdover, but my Bible says heavens instead of sky.
Ooh, God called heaven. Okay.
Ooh, because you know the popular understanding of heaven is that it's up. But what if heaven wasn't up? What if it was all around us? I don't know if I just want to drop that in people's spiritual Kool-Aid. I just.
Nice. Awesome. Anything else that we want to tag in?
The chat room has a really awesome comment about the waters. Yeah, his mom made him do it too. Jesus' mom was like, "Oh, come on, Jesus, do your thing." And it's like, "Woman, no, it is not yet time." She's like, "Just do whatever he says do. Go get the things. Don't worry about it." Like any doting mother would, I'm sure.
And Shamika, when you just said that Jesus told Mary about the water, I was totally thinking like pregnancy imagery, her water broke, and then the heavens flooded down. I think that actually works with the creation story.
If water broke. Like, they don't talk about, see, look, that's Midrash right there. There needs to be Midrash for the New Testament. Midrash is like what the Jewish community does to the gaps and the holes in the stories. Is the rabbis, they write something down to fill those gaps and those holes in the story. And I think the New Testament could do well to have a little bit of Midrash. Because I bet you when Mary had Jesus, there's a little bit of a story there that we're missing. We all know about the whole story, but I'm telling you, the waters, I wonder if it was holy water.
A whole lot of something.
And that's where I stop, right there.
Preach. I love it. Do we have anything else to say about the second day? Anything else to tag in about the heavens above and the heavens below?
I wonder, one thing I've been thinking about, and the separation becomes a binary by which we judge other things. But the second day, there's no ascription of value to the waters above or the waters below. We don't value the sky more than we value the ocean necessarily. And so it's really interesting to me that the light and darkness become values, but the sky and the sea aren't in the same way valued.
Nice.
That I'm thinking of nature.
The same way. I mean, one comes out of the so God's moving over the deep. So we don't hear of a firmament at the beginning. You know, in the first stanza of this poem or whatever we want to call it, this liturgy.
Pericope, something.
Yeah. And so in the second one, it's interesting. It's kind of the same process, but we kind of blow past the second day. I just wanted to slow down a little bit. I realized that I myself blew past the second day, and I was like, well, what about that?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at verse 6, and it says, "And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters."
Yeah.
So that was the first employee. The guy and decided to delegate and said, "Firmament, you go and divide the waters. I'm going to stand right here and supervise."
I love it. I mean, and it's so, I mean, right, and that's really what is happening throughout this whole first creation story, right, where God is speaking, and then the world reacts.
Right.
You know,
right. The Logos is the Word. That's why the Logos was there in the beginning in John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in this beginning, Logos was the Word of God going out and saying, hey, you go do this, and you go do that, and then this is going to happen, and then how about this?
You know, if we're going with firmament as the first employee, we don't have Logos here, but we do explicitly have firmament. So is firmament precede Logos?
Well, let's look at the first day. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the Spirit of God moved. And then God said, that's three things. First, God created, in verse 1. And then in verse 2, the Spirit of God moved. And then in verse 3, God said. So that's the Trinity, if I call it.
Well, it's a three, but I think we want to be a little careful of reading our Christian perspectives back onto a Hebrew text.
Yes, we do. I did that very much on purpose because I'm Christian, and I said for me that is a truth, not the truth, but a truth that is mine.
Okay.
And from my truth, we can in community think about and talk about what it means to each of you. And if you don't agree with that truth, that's awesome, because I would love to hear your truth.
Peter, it sounded like for you the truth was maybe that the firmament was first, the first employee.
Well, I'm just trying to stick with reading it a little creatively here, I guess, in that I was being a little playful.
There's always room for that. There's always room for that.
Right, and so I think one of the values here, especially if one of the goals of these conversations is to read this liberatively, one of the great injustices that has been done to what Christians call the Old Testament is that it gets read as a Christian text entirely, and even that Jews are forced to reckon with that is unfortunate. So I think there's some value in reading this not as a Trinitarian text, even if we, So I think that's just something to be conscious of as we go through.
I would also say something that I've picked up here at Union that's very helpful is instead of using the language of Old Testament and New Testament, using the language of First Testament and Second Testament.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I picked up on as well. And so I would say being in a seminary that's the oldest independent seminary in the country, they teach you very quickly how not to step on other people's toes when you go out and you express your own faith or your own understanding of faith. And the issue I have found with that is when you don't step on people's toes, you never know when you're going to actually step on someone's toe. And sometimes you need to step on people's toes. What if you're learning to dance?
Right.
And if you don't step on somebody's toe and they don't say ouch, then you don't know, oh, I shouldn't do that with my foot. So what I would say is, as we move through these texts and as we move through these words and we respond out of our own honesty and how the Spirit moves within each of us, then this could be a safe space for whatever comes up. And I would hope that this is a safe space for Jesus Christ of Nazareth. But then also for anyone else who's in the room, anyone who's on the group chat, anyone who's on the screen, anyone who's listening, that they can also feel like whatever it is that they brought to this conversation, they can bring to the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially playfulness. I very much appreciate all of the playfulness because that's all that I do. Half the time I'm joking. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready for the third day?
Let's do it.
All right. Peter, you're next on my screen. Will you take it away?
Yeah. Oh, here we go. And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters were gathered together. Waters gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth put forth plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on the earth that bear fruit with the sow." And the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. You know, as I was reading that, I had to do a double take, making sure I didn't read the same thing twice in a row. I mean, the earth is doing its job. It looks like, right? I mean, God says word for word, do this, and the earth does it word for word.
Yeah, we're getting back into the same. If the firmament was God's first employee, then The Earth is the second.
Right.
Yeah, this is like Facebook. You know how like they go back and they talk to like the first employee ever, or like the first 10 employees. So, yeah, I was employee number 7 of Facebook, and I remember this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm. I love that I'm just thinking of it from a creative, like, preaching or a worship standpoint to think about, or devotional, to think about each of the parts of creation as telling their own story, right? If they're an employee and you were, like, interviewing them like The Office and they're all doing sort of like the mockumentary stare, the dry land being like, well, I would have had a day all to myself, but then God decided we were going to bring up seeds, and everybody focuses on the food. Nobody ever talks about how badass the mountains are. Like, fine, guys. I think of creation as a story we bust out at Easter Vigil, or, like, the first Sunday school day when we're all back from fall, and, like, different ways that we kind of try to act it out. Like, what if you brought that playfulness again into it? And rather than sort of the static thing that we do, where it's like, you're going to be a plant, you stand like this. Like, what if you were the plant and you got to talk, and you talked about what was good or exciting?
Right.
So.
Very nice. I appreciate that that thought as well, because I think about the relationship with nature. From my upbringing in the Baptist church, you would say if someone was using nature to commune with God, then that might be seen as too close to paganism. However, to celebrate God's work in nature is to follow what it has in the Bible here. Oh my God, someone called me and it says answer or reject. I don't know if I want to reject someone's phone call, but at the same time I'm in the middle of something. Oh my gosh, that was I rejected it, but I'll call it back. That was okay, new phone. That's just weird language for me. It just raises up red flags, rejecting people. Anyway, whatever I was just saying, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Great. Good job.
I wonder how much freedom, like, I think that when I hear the creation story, I've always heard it narrowly, and I think that part of the reason I'm here is trying to listen more broadly to it. And I wonder how much freedom, thinking about the firmament, God doesn't seem to give specific instructions on how much water above and how much water below, or with the seeds bearing fruit, it doesn't say what kind of fruit, it doesn't say how to bear fruit, it doesn't give any particular instructions. And I think that I appreciate, like, for me, I'm hearing in this a freedom that I don't usually hear in a creation story. I'm like, okay, so there's an apple tree, there's an orange tree, there's a grapefruit tree, there's a lemon tree, like, there's an avocado tree, but not really thinking of these trees having creative agency within the creation narrative. And I think that, given what's to come, I think there's a creative agency and there's a letting go of control just by nature of creating. I think there's a point where God lets go of pieces of control, which is kind of paradoxical, because then we as humans attempt to take control of the text and bend it to what we think it needs to do or should do, or whatever, however we language that, and then however we dress it up to make it look like, no, the Bible really does say that.
Yes.
I find it interesting.
I can co-sign on this concept of agency for nature. And I guess that's what I was sort of winding around to, is that as I was a young child with my faith, I was trying to figure out if it was okay for me to enjoy movies like The Craft, where you have young women who are like witches, and they are worshiping nature. They're at the beach, they're in the woods, they're doing this, that, and the other. And as a Christian, I thought, well, we're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to enjoy nature in that way. We're supposed to be in a building, sitting in a pew, and reading about nature in the Bible, but not actually going out into nature and talking to God, because that's one thing or another. And it wasn't until like 2 years ago here at seminary when someone did a chapel service on unnamed women and mentioned the Witch of Endor, who's in one of the books of history. Some king had gone and got rid of all of the soothsayers and whatnot, and then needed a word from God, so they asked the priests. Priests had bupkis, so they had to go to the next town over. They go to this woman, the Witch of Endor, and they're like, hey, I need a word from God. She's like, oh, no, I don't do that anymore. I just sell candles here. I don't know what you're talking about. And then the king is like, no, seriously, I know that you can do this. So she does, and the word of God held water, in the sense that she gave him a word from God, he employed it, it was blessed, and he moved on with his kingdom. But the Witch of Endor was an unnamed woman, and her service to the king was validated. And so now, in this moment, I'm wrestling with this concept of being able to be in nature and celebrate God and have nature speak to us as God speaks to us through people and have it be okay. Because when I was a kid, it was not okay. Harry Potter wasn't okay either, but, you know, another story for another sermon.
Shamika, I appreciate you bringing in your personal experience and struggle with it, with creation and worship and that sort of thing. I come from Colorado. There's so many people and friends, they said, oh, Hannah, you're from Colorado too? Right on. And the common caveat was I'm religious but not, or I'm spiritual but not religious, and nature, I find God in nature. I don't need a church building, I don't need that community, etc. Very common arguments. And another common argument as we're talking about creation is the struggle, especially amongst my confirmation students, but I think among a lot of adults too, is the struggle between creation and evolution. What do you do with the two? And in our conversation tonight, I heard Emmy, I heard you say, let's share the story as it is. It's not static. You know, just as God's creation is not static, there's this continual changing. And as we're reading this text, I keep imagining, well, what if it didn't quite work out like that? What if the prickly pear tree was, you know, sliced with this other tree, and, you know, just all the really weird trees that just didn't make it, because the earth was just plopping up the stuff, and it was really creative and imaginative, but it just didn't work. Is kind of what I'm thinking about right now, but that's part of the static nature of nature.
And that's part of the thing. Oh.
Go ahead, Mandy.
Go ahead. I was thinking that's part of, like, with the creative agency, I wonder if there were points where God just looked at what was happening and just said, oh, shit. You know, like there's some weird stuff. There are weird plants in the world, you know? And
that's what I was going to say. The running joke of the dodo bird. Like,
right.
Every time you see a dodo, like, oh, my God, Ice Age. Remember the movie Ice Age? That was a big joke. It's like the dodo bird in the last one. Oh my gosh.
I'm thinking of Monty Python, the opening of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, when it says God clearly has a sense of humor, just look at the platypus.
Yeah.
Now I'm imagining God.
That was Dogma.
Oh,
And
Dogma.
then,
Thank you.
I just saw Dogma, and I have Holy Grail on VHS right now. I am so excited that both of those things came up. And yeah, Dogma does that at the very beginning. They're like, except for the stupid platypus. And for those, we apologize for those platypus enthusiasts. And I think that's such a good point. Like, there could have been who knows what kind of awesome, incredible, amazing things. It just didn't make
awful. And really bad
absolutely.
Things.
I mean, mosquitoes made it out somehow, but I really feel like, you know, there probably was something else that, thank goodness, we don't know about that was going on at this time. And I love this idea of, like, this almost like a perpetual motion machine. When God spoke it, and it just started doing its own thing, and it was like one of those, what's the name of that guy that does all those really intricate machines that do, like, something simple?
It's a Rube Goldberg machine.
Boom. There you go. But better than Rube Goldberg, because it was a God machine, so however you want that to be. You know, it sets these things in motion, and then they're their own motion. And then, of course, it's like this system that keeps going. And I remember being in the 5th grade, and there was this thing about Bill Nye the Science Guy, an episode where they talked about the dinosaurs drinking water, and the water that the dinosaurs drank is the same water that we're drinking because the water never went anywhere. It just keeps cycling through. And I was like, ew, I'm drinking dinosaur pee? Ew. That was a great 5th grade moment, by the way. As I drink this water now, I think of it.
I think it's interesting. At the beginning, we were talking about binaries and like this binary between light and darkness. But there's also a part where the light and the darkness get a name. They're called day and night. And then when it moves on to the second day and the beginning of the third day, then you see something like water, which gets different names. It's all water, but it gets different names. Either it's sky or heavens or it's lakes or oceans. And so it doesn't necessarily have to fill a singular role. And I think that that's, with water, there's like explicitly not this binary. There's at least 2 things that water can do. And then from there, when the plants are created, they're just allowed to do, mine says each to its kind, which is like whoever they decide they're going to be is how they are. And God is like, that's fantastic. And so it's rapidly moving away from binary if there ever was one at the beginning at all.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I also like the notion that water can do at least 2 things. At least 2, maybe more.
At least.
But there's we know that there are stories about these things that go beyond this one. So this story never gets the chance to be the definitive one here. So that the plants that do all their things get to continue doing all their things, and the water gets to do its 2 things. And so there's stories that continue happening. There's a future to all of this that this story can't even contain, and they can even get their name and their role, and who knows, they could even say no. It's there's a lot of risk here that happens with the agency that's given. But I also don't know that there is an agency, if the text gives it a whole lot of agency, or if we now know that we can give it some agency. So when God gives the laundry list of things for these plants to do, and they just do exactly that, they're still only responding to God's message, God's command here. So we're as readers, we're the ones who have to kind of say, well, I think there's a little bit more going on here too.
Yeah. Part of the fun of it, right?
Right.
At least.
I think so.
Also, I don't know if this means anything, but I'm looking at how the time is being marked, and it's saying, and the evening and the morning were the 3rd day. So does that mean that God was doing a night shift, and this stuff happened at night, and then in the morning went to sleep? I don't know why it doesn't say, and in the morning and the evening were the 3rd day, the 2nd day, or the 1st day. But it's saying, and the evening and the morning.
I think the next day starts with the things happened, and then there was evening.
Okay.
I also find it interesting that this sort of marking of what we're watching happen couldn't have happened without the first day. The creation of the day and night, and then that thing leads to the next day.
Running comments from the chat. Jeff says, because darkness comes first, evening has to come first. We're getting light out of darkness in the beginning. And Justin tagging in with, I've always heard that the evening and then morning is attributed to the observance of day starting at sundown. And I've heard that as well, and I think I see a couple other nods. So I don't know what the background is to that. I've always been like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Sure, they start their day at sundown, and all of a sudden I go, wait a second, why? Why do we start our day at morning and they start their day at night? And why has no one ever taught me that?
Yeah.
But isn't that also fascinating that something that seems so intrinsic to me is completely thrown apart by the first couple of words of the Bible. Like for me, my day starts in the morning, but not for God, apparently. You know?
Yeah, to be diurnal is apparently not what's going on here.
Yeah,
Huh.
well, yeah. You guys, if we're starting our days in the morning, we are going against the Bible.
We do.
Oops.
I am loving that I was like terrified of if we would even fill an hour, and we're not even halfway through the first chapter, and it's an hour. So I want to be respectful of other people's time. I want to at least move on to the fourth day, and then we can just kind of play it by ear. So, Shamika, would you be willing to read the fourth day?
I would love to. I scrolled back to the very top because we were saying something about it. What verse are we on now?
Verse 14.
Okay, and I'm reading from the King James Version, so this is going to be exciting.
Awesome.
And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Is this the first time God says that it was good?
No, I think everything's been good up until then.
Because God saw that it was good. Each day, everything that happened, God saw that it was good. So that means that he inspected it. So that means inspector number one inspects the work from the day and says, "Yep, this is good."
Mm-hmm.
And then the day ends. But I think it's very key that God didn't just say it was good, but saw that it was good. Because how do you see something is good? Just to be able to look upon something and know. Because I had this happen to me with fruit. I will buy a piece of fruit thinking I did something good and I cut it open. Or I might bite into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then think, "Oh my goodness, I need to learn how to figure out how to pick a piece of whatever it was that I thought I was buying." But to have the gift to be able to just see something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's discernment. Is what I would label that as if I had to give it a word, which I don't.
I like that because then it adds discernment into one of the things that God gifts us with later on. We're getting commenting from the sidebar that the second day, nothing, no goodness.
Oh!
Right? God saw that the light was good in verse 4. God saw that it was good to have dry land, but the whole water day, there was nothing going. There's no declaration. Justin, great comment, which makes a lot of sense in the context of a Hebrew people who had kind of tense relationships with water. My first thought is it a connection to the, I'm going to say the story of Noah because I don't know how to say Noahic. Does it leave room for a flood? In the sense of like, yeah, we're not really sure, and I like that reading that like we're not really sure if we like the water. Do we like the water? Is the water good? We're
Justin.
Also contextualizing it
is amazing.
if we contextualize it in the priestly era, and in Palestine and in that region of the world where water is both life-giving and extremely destructive, and I think that it's hard. The it's hard to negotiate that, and I wonder how much it's contextualized, not just in the Noachic narrative, but also in the immediate context of the rainy season and the dry season. So it's dependence upon rain, but also the fact that it could cause a mudslide and kill you all.
Right. You were going to say something, Hannah?
I think that so this could be a problem of multiple sources being kind of smashed together in Genesis. But in 14 it says, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night." Is this to insinuate that previously there had not been such a clear separation?
Mm.
And it's interesting that we talked about earlier, like this idea of a daily cycle, but like perhaps there wasn't such a clear separation before, and that each time, even though the day is what's called light and the night is what's called dark in the first place, God finds it important that both the day and the night both have like a set of light to them. So with this sort of splitting apart comes an immediate blurring of lines again.
Mm. Mm. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I was going to say when the world was destroyed by water, the rainbow came, and God assured the world, as in Noah's family, that destruction would never come from water again. Even though there has been destruction from water, the world hasn't ended through water because the second destruction will be fire, it is said. And I see the comment here on the side about the Holy Spirit being living water. And that reminds me of how rude Jesus was. Jesus was so rude, always so rude. Rude by talking to women. Rude by talking to tax collectors. He was so rude. He talked to the woman at the well. He met her at the well. And at the time, hospitality meant giving people water. They're in a desert area. You have to give people water. You have to give their animals water. You have to give people food. And this notion of giving water and being water and needing water and having water or not having water or miracles through water, it's very interesting now that we've pointed out that God never said that the water was good.
Yeah.
So what does that then mean for because this is a setup, not just for this book, but because of the way the book of Genesis is next, and then Exodus, and then Leviticus, and then Numbers, and then Deuteronomy, and then et cetera, et cetera. This sets up our context, our framework, our perspective for the rest of the books of the Bible, and of course it depends on which Bible that you're reading, if you have the apocryphal text or if you don't. But every time water then comes up, you have to decide. Because God didn't tell us up front. So it depends.
Oh, I like that. Something that might be maybe just the original scribe was hurried and didn't write it down has now become a way that we're finding like invitation into the text.
Mm-hmm. And omission.
Like it. Oh, Justin's got a great add-in. It's interesting that instead of good, my translation says it was so. Water is water. Like, instead of it was good, it was so. That's great. All right.
Well, the waters are also there from go. I mean, the waters existed before any of the separation. So the waters are kind of couched in creation. And I think Justin might have hit something that they just are.
Does that then make the waters a limit of God's power?
Wait, say that again?
Does that then make the waters a limit of God's power, so God doesn't have the authority over the things that God didn't create from the beginning?
I don't know. I think the book said something about God being omniscient and omnipotent, and that's sort of the thing where, like, can God make a rock too big for God to move?
I wonder, though.
There's no
go ahead, Mandy.
creation of water. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So this is one creation story, and so the notion of an omniscient God is probably not here. Or omnipotent. Which omni? I don't know. I give up.
Omnipotent for all powerful, omniscient for all knowing. Yeah, I learned my Baptist church was real specific with learning them words.
Yeah.
So we have this great, right, this is a question that's been tossed around, and it can take us back to verse 1 of, was God working with something like literally nothing, the sort of the void that we think of at the, the moment of the Big Bang or prior, or was there already existing material that God then messes with? There was some sort of like lump that was an earth form, and then God's Spirit came in and moved over the waters. This has become something I think that's primarily been discussed in the past couple centuries, but basically looking at that first word, the in the beginning, when God created, and some translations are now saying when God was creating or when God began to create. So it definitely takes out, it removes God as maybe the prime mover, right, which is what we've been so accustomed to in sort of philosophical and theological debate, but then allows for creation to do its own thing, creates space for like how does evil get into creation, or how does chaos get in? Well, maybe God was always working with chaos, and so yeah, we have that possibility, at least in this text, that the waters were always there and God was working with a lump that was found rather than something that was created out of space. And obviously different, what you're bringing different theological traditions to in the text is going to take you in different directions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just typing about how this lump that we're talking about, I think of cancer. When you find a lump, like cancer.
Huh.
But it's not chaotic, as Justin was pointing out. This is organic. What God has started with, this lump. So who put the lump there if God didn't put it there? I kind of feel like I need to know. I have the Holy Spirit has a laundry list of questions that I will be asking Jesus when I get to heaven. And I say, Holy Spirit, you put that one on the list. It's going on the list. Because the Holy Spirit brings things back to your remembrance. I'm like, well, you're going to remember this. I won't. I want to know who put the lump there if God didn't. I don't know. I want to know. I'm just being nosy.
Question for me that I think, is it more of a creation when God creates ex nihilo, or is it versus when God creates out of things that already exist? My answer is no, not to ask you all a loaded question, just to put my cards on the table. I think it's as miraculous when God creates out of existing substances as when God creates something out of whole new cloth. I think both are miracles of creation, and both are beginnings. Yeah.
Well, and I use that word nosy very specifically. I have this running thought that Eve was nosy because she wanted to know. She wanted to know what would happen, right? And in some countries, when you point to your nose, that means meat. So she wanted to know what would happen if she bit into the apple and the snake was there and said, go ahead, do it. Go ahead, do it. Ain't nothing going to happen to you. Ain't nothing going to happen. Just go ahead, do it. Just try it. And so she tasted of the fruit because she was nosy. She wanted to know what would happen. And she found out and said, Adam, come take this. Adam was standing right there, saw the whole thing, didn't say nothing, but, well, you know what? Oh, come on now. Come on, just taste it. And the next thing they know, they knew. They knew what we were talking about discernment earlier. They knew the difference between good and evil. Once you have discernment, you can't go back. You cannot return that gift. There is no receipt. Yes,
get us there.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yes. I'm going to keep us rolling, if that's okay. I hate that I'm keeping us, now I'm understanding why the Jewish sages, supposedly stayed up discussing the meaning of Passover from, dusk till dawn. Yes. But I want to keep us, can we, who's next on my, I'm going to do, from the Contemporary English Bible, is that what CEB stands for now? So this is a new translation coming out of a couple different seminaries, but I'm going to do the 5th day because I've decided it's my turn.
Yay!
Let's see here. Yeah. God said, "Let the waters swarm with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth up in the dome of the sky." God created the great sea animals and all the tiny living things that swim in the waters, each according to its kind, and all the winged birds, each according to its kind. God saw how good it was. Then God blessed them. "Be fertile and multiply and fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." There was evening and there was morning, the 5th day.
Nice.
Great. Good. So day 5 then? No, just kidding. Why? Okay, so here's my question. We know that this account doesn't necessarily follow the order of what evolution suggests, and fine.
What?
What?
Ah!
I know, I'm sorry.
I'm out. Mandy out.
But so, fine. Okay, so science and Bible tell different stories sometimes because maybe they have different purposes. But what I'm interested in right now is why do you think they said birds and fish first?
As opposed to the land ones?
Right, yeah, like, or why not just all of them at once? Or like,
Yeah.
and then there was a microbe and it went in 3 different directions. Like, why do you think, what's the purpose of having fish and birds first?
I mean, my guess is it's just, I mean, the worldview of the folks there that we're getting closer and closer to people. That would be my guess. But I mean, it seems to me like the goal of this creation story is to get to people,
Right.
Which may or may not be a helpful way to look at it. I mean, we would struggle to seriously delineate the differences between any sort of creatures and people, in clear, distinct ways. I think like the story is, and again, that's where these divisions, just kind of break down because it's what they are.
A couple of our professors from Luther suggest that it's filling, so days 1, 2, and 3 is creating the space, and days 4, 5, and 6 are filling the corresponding space that was created on those days. So the second day it's the sky and the sea, and so first the sky and the sea are filled with their...
Yeah.
Kind of cool, but I think your
Trying
idea
to
is
fill
cool.
the different spaces that are put there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Clearly, I wasn't paying attention in that class.
Oh no, it's just an article.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't have to be the answer. We
That's
can still
fine.
talk.
If no one else has an answer, then maybe that's where we can stop. I think that's fine. You know what? Let's just rip on through to day 6 because day 6 has lots of stuff for us to unpack, and I want to wind us up a little bit, just because I want to be respectful of time again. So let's, Mandy, I'm tagging you. Day 6, rocket girl. Verse 24. Yeah.
4? Yep. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things and wild animals of the earth of every kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in God's image. In the image of God, God created them. Female and male, He created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of the earth, and every tree with every seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And God saw everything that she had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. The crown of creation!
Bam.
Huzzah.
Oh, no, please don't quote me. Oh my god.
That's going to be on there forever.
Hey, somebody said something about food, and I had to go grab some.
I should have suggested snacks. Like, I should have thematic snacks. Great. Okay, we have so much to work with in this. And Jeff has popped up. Why the reference to people being created in our image? When up until this point it has seemed like God is acting on God's own. Right, so we have, right, okay, Justin, thank you, Justin. We have the Christian interpretation, right, when we layer in Trinity, or we see the fullness of God, in that let us make humankind in our image, which I always find interesting, like, so did we start with Jesus looking like humanity, and then we made humanity, and then Jesus was born? Like, how does that bounce back and forth? And thanks for the Doctor Who reference, Justin. The royal we, right? That's another interpretation that Justin's popping in, that God is speaking to God's self, or properly about God's self. It's so interesting to me that this whole time the text is referring to God with a masculine pronoun, and masculine constructions for the adjectives, but then says, in the image of God, He created them, male and female, He created them. And I think this is, if I remember correctly, there's not a good neutral pronoun in Hebrew. So that God, when God creates in God's image, it is male and female. And yet the text is bound by its own language, right? That the language does not have a good term for saying God is both male and female, so it uses the default of he, and then gets to verse 27 and goes, I'm sorry about verses 1 through 26, that was not correct. My dear friend Austin has talked about this passage and said it's possible, or there's some interpretations that say, never mind, that's chapter 2, forget what I just said, never mind. Anyway, so that God has the sense of being male and female together. I'm talking too much.
I think that's all really good. Another additional little piece to consider too is that in an ancient Near East context, kings were generally created in the image of gods, but not everyday people. And here we have Joe Schmo and Jane Schmo being created in God's image, which much like the agency that we've kind of unearthed with other characters in here, humans also get it, but it's not just the high and mighty who get it.
I think it's significant to me that it's male and female rather than male or female that God created. I think we come across some of these areas where we import binaries that may not have necessarily been in the thought world of the writers. Distinctions, I think, were important in Leviticus, but this isn't Leviticus. Nor was it written at the same time as Leviticus. But reading it today and reading it with friends who are gender nonconforming or who identify as trans, I think the "and" is really important to me. And important to me because not everybody ascribes to gender conformity in behavior, in dress, in whatever. I just like the "and" a lot.
The "and" is good for understanding humanity, and it's good for understanding the gender of God, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This reminds me of Dogma, where the angels don't have any of the equipment. You know, the angels, they keep flashing the main character, and they've got nothing down there. It's like they're Ken dolls.
That's right. That leads in a good place of like if we're created in the image of God, and that means that both male and female bodies are and all in between, or male and female in that spectrum. What does it mean to be created in the image of God? Because it's clearly not just if you're this one gender, then you're in the image of God, because it's encompassing male and female. And I'm trying to slur those together to like catch up with this, what we're talking about with like the multiplicity in that. So what does that mean? And I think, you know, like we can look back to what God has been doing already. If God is making humankind in God's image, then that's something that is creative, something that has agency, something that can order chaos, something that can call forth creativity out of other things, something that gives names or creates boundaries and finds separations, but also finds ways to move in between them.
I also wonder, thinking of God as kind of this womb-like space where God, in order to create, God creates space within God's self for creation, for the relationship. Although being almost 7 months pregnant, it's not hard for me to get to womb imagery right now. So,
I think it's also worth noting that it doesn't say only creates them male and female. But that it could be sort of an explanation of, if people are like, I could see like if somebody asked like, well, how does God create in God's own image, particularly if there is all these masculine in his own image, how does he create, you know, people that don't look or that aren't male? So it could be like this sort of like, oh, God can create all kinds of things out of God's image.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've often said something like, God created creation, and creation creates as well. So all that is created is part of and has moved through the Creator in some way. So as creations ourselves, we are creators, and God is a co-creator with us in all that we create, all that we do. Which is why when I started the prayer at the beginning of this Bible study, I said where two or more are gathered, God is in the midst, regardless of how those are gathered, because this creation, this high tech, all of us have some fashion of a screen or some manner of high technology, communications technology. It has already been infused with God, the Creator, because we are a creation made by the Creator, and it's sort of like in math, when you have permutations or when you have fractals are patterns that repeat. No matter how far you zoom in or how wide you zoom out, the pattern remains the same. And I think that God, in creating things, created these fractals of self-perpetuating, Rube Goldberg-like machines that in perpetuity continue to create. Seeds continue to fall every season from the trees that were started, the trees that made it, you know, or the ones that were after the flood. They just said, okay, well, we're going to do something a little bit different then, whatever the case, right? These things continue to happen in season and out of season. And we, as people who were from the Mother Earth, not Mother Earth Gaia, but the black woman from Africa, where everybody's from, we continue to create and populate and go in our own way. Yeah. I just had some coffee. I don't usually drink coffee, so now I'm super excited.
No, thank you. Yeah, but and we've got some conversation going on in the comments as well of just in the chat that humanity becomes doesn't necessarily take on the role of God, but becomes what connects the rest of the previous creations together and works with them and is going to be the long-term guide for them. And I don't think we mean that in a God then removes God's self from involvement with creation, but rather like you're in a relationship with me. Like I made you in my image in order to take care of what I've made. Like take care of the chaos, subdue where it's a problem. You know, be fruitful in that like you're raising up fruit and giving out into the world and producing what goes on, you know, from our lives into the lives of others. Yeah, like there's I think just Justin says, how does it change our perception of humanity if we're the stuff that ties creation together? And I think especially if we're thinking about like this is the idea that God started with. This is what God really wanted to keep going with. God wanted to have partners in creation and to continue the growth of creation and the fruitfulness of creation. And when we fall short of that, then we return to the waters, right? In a Christian reading, we say we're baptized and we're dead and alive every day, and every day we're called back to that original thing in creation of being God's partners in it and being made in the image of God to care for creation, to care for each other, to subdue chaos and pain where it happens.
I guess I at this point I'm not a huge fan. So I'm stuttering. Having read this, the thing I've been dwelling on is the God as creator of order, and I'm not always a huge fan of that notion of subduing chaos and creating order out of things, because oftentimes I think maybe 100% of the time order necessarily excludes quite a bit. And those who control the order, create the order, get to decide who is out in the chaos. And so I then get a little worried about God creating humankind in God's image to kind of extend that process of creation. Because what it seems to do to me is ascribe a certain amount of authority for boundary and order making to the people who are already making the boundaries and making the order. And so there's going to be some slipperiness, I think, when people read this. But I don't trust this passage much at all.
Okay.
In that way, yeah.
Tell the truth, shame the devil. Go you.
I also wonder, for me, I put a quote from Jenny Falkman-Grangard that I thought was really wise, like thinking about this being written in the priestly era of a people that have almost nothing to cling to anymore and are returning to a destroyed Jerusalem. And so a time full of promise, but then you arrive back at the place you used to call home, or your grandparents used to call home, or your great-grandparents maybe, and you realize, wait, this was what you wanted to go back for? What the hell? And having nothing to cling to. And I wonder, for me, I wonder if this passage, it's been so bastardized by people in power interpreting it that we forget that it might have actually been written from a marginal perspective. Mm-hmm. I didn't even think of it that way. Jenny really helped me to think what happens when someone who's completely disempowered recognizes their own agency. And what if this is a person finally recognizing, I've been created with a voice. I have a voice. I am beautiful. I am loved. I am worthy. And I want, for me, it totally changes how I read this, because I'm a person who, my privilege is just, I'm so unaware of it, and I wonder if I could just separate that, because I want to come down and hear this as top heavy, but I wonder if that's just the way it's been read for so long that I'm conditioned to read this as hierarchical.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how to get myself out of that because of my privilege. So
the fact that you recognize that you have privilege, because each of us has privilege, each of us has different kinds of privilege, whether it's ableism, whether it's the fact that we're all in a capacity where we can have this conversation on some sort of device, right? So no matter who you are, no matter where your testimony is and how you're coming to this conversation, all of us have privileges that we can check at the door and enter into a conversation of vulnerability, having had those things stripped away. And it is a process, and it is a concept that so many people are struggling with, because so much more of the conversations that are being had are going past the surface level sort of, oh, you know, racist, post-racist society, we have a black president now, or like things are now, no, we're past that now. We don't have conversations like that anymore, because so many people, like you said, are recognizing that they have a privilege that's preventing them from being able to see things or being able to receive things. And I appreciate how you said, I am X, I am Y, I am Z. These are things from womanism, this concept that a theological reflection is valid coming from the conversation or the experience of a black woman is womanism. That's womanism, essentially. And what womanists do is they take the black woman's perspective, or they take the person of color's perspective, the female person of color perspective, and it started that way and then expanded to other subalternate peoples. So whoever the marginalized are, taking their perspective and saying, what about the Canaanites? What if they were First Nations folks? And God said, go take that land. Oh, that's manifest destiny for you. You know, or other examples in the Bible, when you look at Hagar, I often call Union Theological Seminary, we're like Hagar's child. Instead of the redheaded stepchild, which I like redheaded people, they're beautiful. So I say Hagar's child, because that is the child that the promise wasn't given to. She was a slave girl from an African country who was put in certain positions to where she had to do what somebody said she had to do and had a child from it. And that child was not blessed in the same way that the promised child was blessed. She ran away from that family twice. And both times God said to go back. So if you read Sisters of the Wilderness by Dolores Williams, she goes in deep on that story. And I appreciate you saying what you said, Amanda, because it's not often heard, honestly. I had conversations with people where I attempt to explain to them my position as a black woman, and they'll negate my experience. No, you don't understand. It didn't happen like that. That professor didn't tell you not to get a PhD because you're black. You tell that to everybody. Okay.
Doesn't Alice Walker say that womanist theology is, or womanism is there to lift up every single voice of anybody who's marginalized at any point, so it affirms the humanity of every human being? And that makes I think, Mandy, your point here really hard work. Damn it. Because there's always so many layers of oppression and liberation happening, and to just simply say, you know, that the liberation for one has to entail the liberation of everybody else, and that's really difficult to do, because in this passage there's probably people here who are privileged and writing, and we know that they're privileged because they're writing, but then there's also people that they are, you know, taking advantage of, or they're being taken advantage of by outside powers, whether it's the Babylonians or the Persians.
Yeah, and I think I really wanted to circle back to your comment and your discomfort with this, and I think I'm uncomfortable with it too, and I think I can't too quickly go to this is a marginal perspective, because I need to sit in this in my privilege and recognize for a very long time this has been read in a certain way, and so it coming potentially from a marginal perspective doesn't absolve me of the hard work of saying, yeah, but I may not be that marginal perspective.
Right.
Yeah, and I would also say, as soon as you start to talk about a marginalized group of people, the last thing you want to do is tarry to, yes, but everyone is marginalized in some way. That's the same thing as going from
Right.
Black Lives Matter to All Lives Matter, and we don't want to do that because, we're, like you said, we have to sit. We have to dwell. To dwell in something doesn't just mean to sit. You dwell there. You live there. You exist there. You put pictures up on the wall. You put rugs on the floor. You make that space yours as you sit there and dwell there and exist there and live there and feel all of the things that you have to feel in that moment. So before, yes, Alice Walker may have said that, but before all of the people, there's always going to be someone who's marginalized. There's always going to be someone who's cast aside. The poor will always be with you. But yet and still, before we run to all, we all have our own. We talked about it earlier, the I. We can't know ourselves unless we know the other. Who is the other?
Right. Yep.
Right. Thank you all, because this is one of the things that I wanted to do is we have to bring multiple voices to a table when we're interpreting, because otherwise it's so easy to lean on our own understanding or to go easily to the quick resolution or to stay with our own experience. And the importance of bringing our own experiences and recognizing them, whether they are positive or negative, oppressive or marginalized, etc., to bring them and to let iron sharpen iron, and to learn from each other. And sometimes that means that we say, this is my story, and it's the story that I understand, and this is where I have to stand and speak from. And sometimes it'll be a place where we say, this is a story that we can all confess to. And I don't think any good guidelines exist for that. And I think when we try to go too hard one way or the other, where we say we're going to have one story that we all stand behind, then it becomes, hegemonic and it's the hierarchy. And if we go too far to the side of saying we each have our own experiences, then we start to miss each other and we silo into little groups and, make 40,000 denominations throughout the world where you have to confess to our exact creed.
Right.
So, neither of which God made us for, right? If God says let us make humankind in our own image, then there's also that community. Whether it's a royal we or a heavenly court, there's a community of who we are.
Absolutely.
So I'm just
yeah,
so excited. Okay. I hate to wrap this up, but I think we also should, just to be respectful of everybody's time.
It's a good position to be in. It's a good thing to hate, having to leave.
Right. So I'm going to do something that may irritate everyone else, but I'm doing it anyway. We're just going to read the final passage, and then we're going to close, because the final passage is about rest. And I want you guys, instead of we can talk about it obviously, but I'm gonna push us, instead of talking about it, to go try to live that.
See what you did there.
Yeah. So report back in a week and let me know how your rest went. I'm gonna close it because I'm in charge. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the seventh day God finished the work that God had done, and God rested on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from doing all the work that God had done in creation. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. Thank you all for joining me. You honor me, and we honor each other with our stories and our experiences and our different ways and our similar ways. So go and rest. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to the image of God that you were made in. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I will see you all again next week.
Yay, thanks, Emmy.
Yay, Thank you for all that you made.
Thank you. Peace.
Deuces. Oh, and Emmy, we're gonna talk, you and I.
Yes, please. I want that.
Oh yeah. I don't have a schedule, so we're gonna have to. I'll send you an email or something, but we got to figure out when we're gonna have one of these.
That'd be awesome. Yes, please. I really, really
All right.
want that.
All right, consider it done. Have a good night.
Peace.